How's it going, everybody? It is the FizzWiz, and we are back for another update. It has been quite a while since we released any update videos since the last beta release, which had, the demo and the source code in it. But just this past week, Sage 2019 had started, and we released a demo for that. And I thought that it would be a good idea, since we just are coming off the end of Sage here, to go over a lot of things that are going on and keep you guys updated one-to-one with the project and how things are going and what to expect in the future. So first things first, we have the Sage demo. And the Sage demo was kind of a success. A lot of people did like it. I know for the most part, from what I've seen, people did like a lot of what we were doing with it. But one of the biggest gripes that most people had with the demo was the fact that it lacked a lot of polish, which to an extent was kind of our fault. On one hand, it was our fault because we just didn't get around to polishing things. I don't think that we've had enough focus on polishing things. And on the other hand, we were kind of rushed to get the demo out because of two different reasons, both of which were not within our grasp of control. One of them was the fact that there was a deadline for Sage. We had to submit a video by the 20th, so we had to make sure we had a functioning demo that we could at least submit. And then we had 7 days after that to update and make any changes. And you might be saying, well, you had 7 days after that to, make changes to the demo, so why didn't you? And we did. We made one initial change. If you saw the original demo that we uploaded, it was horrendous. It was terrible. And I don't think anyone actually got to play that version, which was good because it was absolutely unplayable. It was terrible. But one of the reasons why we didn't make any other changes was the fact that our repo system, the system that we use to share files and update the project between all of us team members, all of that, it went down because the repo client, GitKraken, was going to start charging us basically to access a private repo that we already owned. Like, GitKraken doesn't do anything except act as a client to allow you to access repos. So literally, we owned the house, and GitKraken was the landlord charging us every time we wanted to unlock our front door, which was completely stupid. So right now we're in the process of jumping repos and repo clients. So by the time this video goes up, hopefully we'll have all that back up and we will be back in full production. But during the week of Sage, we've kind of taken a break and stepped back and taken a look at a lot of the things that we needed to do for the next update. And speaking of that, let's go over what the Sage demo actually had. That way we can go over what it is that we need to polish and change for in the future. One of the biggest things that the demo has is a actually functioning goal ring. I know that our previous versions of the build had a goal ring, and the goal ring did send you to a results screen page, but it didn't really do anything outside of that. Like, you got to the results screen page, it gave you a faulty score because we didn't have a proper score system set up yet, and then you kind of were just stuck there. We didn't have an actual game loop going on. But now the goal ring is completely functional. Whenever you go hit the goal ring, it'll pull you to the results screen. It'll deactivate your control so you can't run around and do a bunch of stuff. And you will get an actual score. It'll score you based on your current score, your rings, your time, and things like that. And on top of that, if you hit the A button or the space bar or mouse 1, it will boot you back to the menu. And that's the second biggest thing that we added, was a main menu and navigatable menus. In the menu, you can change things like the graphical settings, the sound settings, and which character you want to choose. And we had Sonic and Shadow as the two playable characters, because those are the two main playable characters in the Infinity Engine. And therefore, those have just transferred into Infinity Plus, obviously. Another thing that we had added, and this is alongside with the menus, was the ability to customize your character's moveset from the character selection screen, which from what I have seen, the multiple streamers that I have watched who cover and like played Infinity Plus for a while, none of them knew that. Like, none of them knew that once you selected Sonic or once you selected Shadow, you can change their moveset, which, sorry about that. None of them really knew that, and part of that is our fault because the UI menu we had was very much a placeholder, so there wasn't really a bunch of indication like, hey, you can swap your moves. So part of that was, pretty much our fault because we didn't have a proper indication system saying, hey, you don't have to just have the stomp and quick step, you can have the bounce and the pivot as well. So that was kind of our fault. But that is another ability, or another thing we've added to Infinity Plus, is straight from the menus, you can choose what movesets your characters want. Now, in your demos, or any fan games that you may make out of Infinity Plus, you're probably not going to want that feature, but for the sake of Infinity Plus, we did that to show off what the demo was capable of doing in terms of swapping character abilities. So even though that specific feature probably won't be utilized too much in fan game demos or any other fan game levels, people can do so if they decide to go that route. But we do have a proper character selection screen set up, and even though obviously you couldn't see with the demo since it wasn't any of the source code, in the behind the scenes inner workings, we have a lot of that already set up to add and include characters of your own if you would want to, as well as a method of customizing their moves from the screen, main menu screen, character selection screen, if you so please. So those are the big three things that we have added: an actual functioning game loop with the goal ring booting you back to the main menu that will boot you up into a level, and character selections and the ability to swap your movesets in the character select screen. So those are one of the big three things. We did add a couple of other things in between the previous build and this current build. Super Sonic and Super Shadow, the super transformations are in there. There was some bug fixes in between them, in between updates, a couple of things here and there that we needed to fix. And we've also completely reworked the light speed dash and the homing attack. Those are still in a work in progress, and in the demo it's very clear, which here soon in the next section, or the next point I'm going to go over, both the homing attack and the light speed dash had a couple of bugs in them that a lot of people have noticed, and we're aware of those bugs. But most of those bugs are from the fact that it's not completely finished. But on top of that, there was a couple of other things we had added, like the spring poles. Those were actually completely unfunctional. We did change the map around heavily to further accentuate how things worked. Another thing we added, and this is a pretty big feature, and unless you have the source code and you can play it in the editor, you actually don't really know this too much. But one of the things that we have added is a shuttle loop correction system to help keep Sonic and Shadow, or whoever's running around the shuttle loop, within the center of the loop. So one of the things that people constantly have problems with shuttle loops is going around them. Like, a lot of times Sonic will veer off to one side, or he'll veer off the other side, or he'll not want to stay, where you want him to, mainly due to sometimes the complex collision of the shuttle loop. This correctional system will keep the characters in the center. It's not perfect and it's not 100% accurate. If you run across the shuttle loop at a 90-degree angle, or 70 to 80-degree angle from where you're supposed to enter the loop, obviously the correctional system's not gonna be able to catch you in time. But it does, if you're going around the loop, if you remember the quadruple shuttle loop that we had and how it was nearly impossible to get into otherwise, we did change that, so now the correctional system will actually hopefully fix that for the most part. And like I said, it is still a work in progress. There are a couple of bugs. Just yesterday, my main programmer, who, even though our repo was down, he's been working on it on a duplicated version of the project that no one else can access. It's just him. He went in and reworked that a bit, so hopefully it'll be a little bit better. So that's one of the things that we've added. One of the things that is actually in the code, but not accessible in the demo, is the grind rails, which were made by NECA. A lot of that stuff was obviously not accessible in the demo, but we did add them. It's technically in the source code, and it will most likely be within the next build of the project. The next time we release the source code, it will most likely have grind rails. But the big problem is there's something wrong with the construction of the grind rails. They don't want to flip upside down properly. So, you know, we're having a lot of issues with it, but a lot more issues than we had hoped. But hopefully we can get to it in the future, and we'll hopefully be able to get it to you before the next update. But to move on to the next bulletin point here, a lot of the bugs that we came across the demo, and a lot of the issues that we came across, people who play the demo, we've noticed a lot of them. We've been taking notes down. We've been keeping track of them. A lot of times whenever we watch people play the stream, or like play the demo on streams, one, we're watching them because, you know, we want to get people's immediate reaction to the demo. We enjoy watching people have fun with the demo, but we're also making sure to keep track of, you know, all of the bugs that people come across. Because the thing is, in terms of playtesting, other than the previous build that we have released, which a lot of the bugs that people have been bringing to us from the previous demo build, we have been fixing. So, it's kind of a vicious cycle, unfortunately, right now. And here in the future, I have another point that we're going to bring up here in the future part of the video about this. But the only ones bug testing our project is us right now. It's just our 4-man team. Our team it's actually 6 people, but only 4 of us are the programmers, so only 4 of us have access to the source code. Us 4 are the only ones who are bug testing, and 4 people is not a very big bug testing. It's not a very big bug testing team. That's not a very big pool of people to pull from of information. That, and because we have, you know, a bunch of, you know, we know the inner workings of things. We know how to avoid bugs. Like, we know if we come across a bug, we know what causes that bug, and we know how to avoid it. So it's actually a bit counterproductive to us. So getting a lot of this feedback from other people's streams and stuff has been very, very helpful. And that's one of the reasons why we've been keeping track of a lot of the streams. Anytime someone's like, oh, we're streaming games from Sage, we kind of like Hawkeye watch the streams from a distance. Like, are they going to play Infinity Plus? What bugs are they going to come across? What issues are there going to be? Can we take notes? What do we need? You know, that's kind of why we've been keeping track of a lot of those. But just to mention a couple of the bugs that people have come across. One, the homing attack bug. Like I said, I'd get back to this. Because the homing attack was recently reworked, there is a certain current bug going on with it, where the homing attack will go into this weird cooldown state, where if you hit so many enemies, or you hit enemies or something within like a certain frame, it'll go into a cooldown state and you'll be prevented from homing attacking things. We think we know what's causing that problem, but I'm not entirely sure. But that is one of the bugs that people come across. And another bug that people have been coming across is the light speed dash bug. The light speed dash will sometimes cut off in the middle of the light speed dash for some reason, which is, I think, a bug unrelated. Like, it might be related to an unintended function where you can actually stop light speed dashing in the middle of a light speed dash, which I could be wrong, but I'm not entirely sure. But that's one of the other bugs that we've mentioned, seen, and we know about. And there's a couple of things that aren't necessarily bugs, but rather just unintended mechanics or features. Like, people have not been able to wall jump properly. People don't know how to do the wall slide, which obviously I know how to do the wall slide, and I've explained to people how to do the wall slide. But just because I've explained to people how to do the wall slide doesn't mean that the wall slide is okay in its current state. And just recently, we've actually gone through a bunch of steps to help fix it. And of course, that also includes the wall jump. So that's another thing that we're fixing. I know of a lot of people have been like, oh, they say you can jump up against walls, but, you know, it doesn't do anything. It is doing things. It's just people weren't doing it correctly. But instead of, you know, correcting people, hey, you have to do it the right way, we're going to change it. That way people are more likely to do it the right way without even knowing it. So, you know, instead of correcting people, we're just going to fix, you know, the problem and actually make it work as intended, which we should have done a long while ago. But like I said, we have been more focused about adding new features and things rather than polishing up old ones. But like I said, that's one of the things we're going to be working on in the future. There's a couple of other issues. People were having problems with the dynamic camera. It was confusing a lot of people with how it worked. Specifically with the controls, like people would enter the trigger for a dynamic camera angle, and it would mess up people's controls, or they just didn't understand how the controls work. So we're going to go back and be reworking a lot of that stuff. So there's just a whole lot of things that people were having issues with. There is a couple of bugs with the super transformation going on where Sonic doesn't want to properly transform if you're using a controller, or the animations aren't properly playing right and things like that. But we've been keeping track of a lot of those things, and we want to make sure that, you know, we get to these. And the next update is going to be heavily focused on that. But speaking of the next update, on top of those, all the polishing and the bug fixes, there will be a couple of other things that we're going to be adding. One, we will be compacting all of the enemies down into a singular master class. That way, all of the related code that is shared amongst all the different types of enemies can be accessed from one blueprint, rather than copy pasted a million times across a bunch of other blueprints. So all of the enemies will be placed into a master class, which will make it a lot easier. If you want an enemy, you'll be able to just simply drag and drop the master class, and then from a drop-down menu, decide which enemy you want specifically. And then from another drop-down menu, you can decide, you know, what features or what characteristics you want the enemy to have, whether you want the enemy to be flying, whether you want them to be stationary, if you want them to walk around, if they want to shoot at you, or if they just sit still or whatever, you know. That's another thing we'll be adding. There's a couple of other features. I'm trying, like, I don't have them written down, but and if they come to mind, I'll bring them up. But I can't think of all of them right now. That's one of the features we'll be adding in the future. But to go back to the bug testing earlier, like I mentioned earlier, between the 4 of us on the team, the 4 programmers that have access to the source code, there's just not enough people to bug test. And that is why I am actually very glad to announce that we are going to be opening up QA testers for it. We are going to be setting up a system that will allow us to distribute packaged demos more swiftly, hopefully. And we will be submitting them to a specific select team of people that we will be taking applications for and choosing individually to play test and bug test the demos for us. That way, people who don't have prior knowledge of, you know, how to avoid the bugs and the issues in the engine, people who don't have that kind of prior knowledge will be able to go in with a fresh set of eyes and not only bug test and, you know, find things that are wrong, they can also quality test. So, like, for example, the things with dynamic camera angles or things like that, those weren't bugs, but they had some unintended issues with them that we weren't really aware of, simply because we knew how they worked and other people didn't. People in the QA team will be able to bring up these kinds of issues and be like, hey, you know how these work, but the general populace don't, so if you change it, it'll be easier for the general populace. Things like that are what the QA team is going to be doing. And whenever this video goes live, we will be accepting applications for those. And by applications, I don't mean like actual applications, but I will probably be putting together like a document or something for people to fill out. But we will have our own rule sets for things. So that's one of the big announcements from this video was the fact that we are going to be opening up QA testers for people to test and give us direct feedback about gameplay mechanics that may be iffy, as well as bugs and bug testing and things like that. Another thing that might possibly happen in the future, and this isn't going to be restricted to the QA testers, this is going to be for everyone. We may open up a survey in the future to really get an idea of what people want. I know, for example, one thing that people ask about all the time is roll physics, like the ability to roll down hills and things like that. People ask us to implement that all of the time. And it's not that we don't want to do it. Like, I understand why a lot of people want this, and I think that people's ideas and their reasoning for wanting like the mechanic like the roll, I think that's all justified. I think, you know, people are allowed to want that. But I also think that a lot of people don't really understand what that would mean in terms of gameplay for Infinity Plus. we would have to alter a lot of the core movement systems, and we would have to alter a lot of the core gameplay and controls to help accentuate the role and a lot more momentum-based mechanics, because Unreal has its own physics system. It knows how to handle movement and momentum and things like that. And Infinity Plus does take advantage to that to an extent, but it doesn't do things like, you know, it doesn't take into account things like rolling down hills and gaining speed exponentially on an incline or a decline or things like that. But things like that can heavily influence a framework or an engine's core mechanics, and it's a fine line that we would have to cross. It's still on the table. We're still considering it, and we still really kind of want to add it, but we're not going to force ourselves to if we can't fit it into the framework properly. If we feel like it will mess things up in the framework too much or things like that, we may end up not actually end up adding the rolling physics. It's not that we don't want to, and it's not that we don't want to listen to people with ideas. It's just because you bring an idea to us doesn't actually mean it's a good idea, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the idea, while it may be good, will actually work with what we have. So, but the survey, if we did it in the future, would hopefully, you know, more directly communicate between us and the user base for it. So, for Infinity Plus. So hopefully sometime in the future, maybe we'll get to that. If people really, really want a survey, you can let me know down in the comments. If everybody really wants a survey, then we can do one. If I had to guess, it'll probably be around the end of the year, which, speaking of, is our projected release date for the next update. You know, shocker release date, you know, announcement. We don't have a specific date, and we don't have a very specific time frame, but the general idea of what I would like to aim for the next release is November, December. That is hopefully whenever we will be able to get the next update to you. And whenever I mean next update, I mean both a playable demo and the source code. So the next update will include the source code for everyone to update to and use versus the previous source code that we released a while back. So, like I said, November, December, that's roughly where we're going to be aiming for. I can't guarantee that we are going to hit that, and I can't guarantee, you know, a specific time frame within that area. It just depends on how things end up going and how much work we get done, how fast we get it done, and how many complications we come across. So hopefully we can get it in within that time frame. So now you guys know. For those who are, you know, interested and really want to get their hand on the next update of the source code, that will be the time frame to look for. On another note, and I, you know, this isn't actually part of my video notes here. This is something that I thought of that I would actually like to just tack on real quick. We've not set a specific date for this or whenever we're doing this, but probably at around January next year, we are going to be holding a Sonic Infinity Plus Game Jam. The team and I are going to sit down and take time to look at levels that people will submit to us. So if you're confused on what a Game Jam is, essentially what a Game Jam is it's an event where people are restricted to a very short amount of time to create a game. And then they submit that game to a bunch of judges, and the judges will determine, like, hey, this game is great, this game is not great, or, you know, things like that. And a lot of times, you know, game jams will follow a specific theme. So a lot of times, people will be like, all right, this game jam's theme is RPGs, and people will have usually about 1 day to make an RPG game a game based on the core aspect of an RPG. And that is the general idea of a game jam. Our game jam will be different. It will have slightly different rules. For one, we won't be making people create a whole game. If you want to enter in the game jam, you do not have to create an entire game. Our game jams will consist entirely of just one level. You only have to submit one level. And the first game jam isn't going to have a specific theme, but future game jams will have themes that we will ask that you do follow. And the judges will be our team, the Infinity Plus team. We will be the judges of which ones win, which ones are like runner-ups and things like that. And even though most game jams I think have a prize, we most likely will not have a prize, especially for the first 2 or 3 of them. Come maybe the 4th game jam, if it really kicks off and we end up getting to 4 game jams, which hopefully we do. We probably will add a prize, but it's not going to be like a cash prize or anything. It'll most likely be the winner can have some form of involvement with the next update of Infinity Plus. But that's kind of our my next big announcement was the game jam. But that, again, won't be until after our next update, and probably a month or 2 after the update, depending on when it is, just to give people plenty of time to get familiar with how Infinity Plus works. And we're not another thing was the time frame. We're not going to lock you down to 1 day, and we're probably not even going to lock you down to 1 week. It might be 2 weeks, it might be 3 weeks, it may be a whole month. It just depends on how we feel is a good time frame. That's weird. But that was the announcement, a game jam coming next year, hopefully. And the final thing I would like to mention, and this is the final point, and it is also another announcement. We starting now, whenever this video goes live, we are accepting auditions for a voice actor. We need a voice actor to play Whisper the Wolf. Big shocker. If anyone has been following us for a while, you would probably know that quite a while ago, we would post a couple of snippets here and there of development, and one of the things that we added was a model of Whisper the Wolf. So at that point in time, we've kind of low-key announced that we were going to be adding Whisper the Wolf as a playable character. And as any Sonic fan knows, Whisper the Wolf doesn't have a voice actress. She doesn't have anyone playing her. And we need someone to come in and, do voice clips, make grunt sounds, yell sounds, maybe a few lines here or there. But starting at the release of this video, we will be accepting auditions for Whisper the Wolf. So obviously, you do need to be female. Sorry about that, all you guys. But in the future, we're going to have another audition in the future. I'm not going to tell you who it is for, but we will have another audition for the guys later on in the future. And obviously, some of the requirements are like you have to have a decent mic. Ideally, you would have to be, semi-professional. You can't get your phone and record off of your phone, or you can't sound like you're 12 years old. Obviously, you do have to have some level of professionality with it. But we will be accepting auditions and voice clips for Whisper the Wolf, and information on where you can submit them will be down below. And we will be able to get back to you, and hopefully we will have more information about Whisper the Wolf here soon. We don't know if she'll be in the next update. That was actually on the chopping block. I initially actually had Whisper the Wolf slated for the next update, but one of her Sage hit, and I realized, hey, we needed to change focus from adding content to polishing content for now. She may not make it to the next update. That is just one of those, depending on how much time we have. But like I said, you guys can submit auditions down below. Links will be down below in the description. And I think that's just about it. This video ended up being about 30 minutes long, but, I think I did a pretty good job at staying on topic and saying everything that needed to be said. But anyway, that'll be it for today. Like and subscribe if you want to. You don't have to, obviously, but it does help out. And, share the video if you want anyone else to know about Infinity Plus, or any future Sonic fan game designers, or someone who's just interested in game design but isn't sure where to start, You share the video if you guys think anyone you might know might be interested. And also, you can join the Discord to get a lot more live updates there. And you can also find the Infinity Plus official Twitter account and the description below as well, and you can follow there. And there we also try to post updates and how-to videos on how to do things with the engine and things like that. And, you know, little tips and tricks here, like, hey, you might want to do this in your level versus this in certain cases and scenarios. So, yeah, I think that's just about it. So I will see you all guys next time for probably the stream, which is probably going to be today, because I'm hoping this video is released on a Friday, which is when I normally do my streams. So I will see you all guys then, and take care.